Uh, I'm Mahdi Shaheeb Sher. My website is www.shaheeb.com. I think that one of my interests in the world is the EU agricultural policy. I think European Union and the EU agricultural policy is quite an important issue in the global economy at the moment. I think with the agricultural policy in the EU, we have a very unusual situation in Europe, where rather than having a modern service economy in the world, we have a European Union that is dependent on the agricultural policy to support its economy throughout Europe. I think that that is quite unusual in the world. When you look at most of the global economy and how nations kind of try to develop their economy, it usually consists of developing their retail outlets and their service sector, building up their manufacturing base, and kind of having a good performing economy to kind of develop it as an advanced economy. So I think the unusual thing about the European Union that rather than falling along the traditional lines of building an economy, it has to draw on the agricultural policy to develop agriculture within the European Union. And I think that's how its economy is dependent on. It's kind of pretty much dependent on the agricultural policy to build the agriculture throughout the European Union. So I think that is quite significant for the world. I think that it is quite important to see how the European Union is developing its economy in the world as the European Union. I think that the European Union does need to seriously look at the European Union and the agricultural policy within it. I think that it can no longer be a lazy economy that depends upon agriculture to service its economy throughout the European Union. I think it does need to go along more modern, practical, traditional lines of developing its retail and service sector. I think these are important considerations in a modern economy, and it can no longer just depend on an agricultural policy and its agriculture throughout the European Union to build a lazy economy. I think Europe is a very important part of the world. It probably has 20% land mass of the world. I think it's very influential in the world, and it controls something like maybe 40% of trade in the world. So it is quite important, I think, in those respects that it is a very it's a small proportion of the total world land surface, but it does control a large part of world trade, maybe 40% of it. So it is quite an important part of the global economy in the world. And I think that the agricultural policy, unfortunately, is keeping Europe back, the European Union back. I think that I think that for there to be such a traditional mechanism for developing European kind of economies, to take a big risk with those economies throughout the European territory and throughout the European Union. So I think that Europe does need to think very hard about how its economy of the future is going to develop. I don't think you can do it with agriculture and the agricultural policy. So I think that there has to be some questions directed at European agriculture and the European agricultural policy. And I think that we do need modern mechanisms in place to develop a more modern and traditional lines of building an economy, and that is retail sector and service sector. So I think that these are important things that the European Union needs to uh, consider and develop within its territory. And I think that especially with a growing global economy, it has to look at how it can fit into that responsibly as a advanced responsible economy and as economy of the future. So that's one of my views about the European Union and the European Union agricultural policy. Thank you very much.